So, got the wingtip on. I didn't show you that, but I just butt joined it and glued it carefully on both sides. I didn't use those little pieces underneath. Um, but you can see that I got that piece that's wrong, that underside is showing over. And you can see these massive overhangs on the ailerons. And that's what I'm trying to deal with now, is how to add the ailerons. So to take a break, I decided to put this little piece in. It's a little piece of wood that goes, faux wood, I guess, that goes in between there, and it fit beautifully. Looked really nice. It's just a piece that's folded over twice. So a piece of paper folded over twice, and it looks really nice. It's good in there. So that's, little things happen that are good. Now the ailerons are typical. I'm pointing out where you do a fold cut, or not a cut, but you use the back of your blade to get a little bit of a fold going, and make sure these pieces all fold together and look good. And then you start gluing, and you glue up all those edges and on the side part there, and then you just fold these in and down. You have to make sure that that piece there comes down, but you can kind of sandwich it in there, and once it starts to sandwich, it'll work. Press it down, make sure the edges are together and glue, and everything gets trapped where it's supposed to. And the ailerons actually look really good. Sometimes you got to play around to make sure the edges are where they're supposed to be, because you don't want them to squash. You want to keep the aileron, you want to make it have a thick appearance, and make sure the edge looks nice and it'll fit inside where it's supposed to go towards the wing, or in the wingtips. And there's your aileron. And I did the other one, so I ended up having two ailerons. A little touch up here and there with some marker. But there you go. That'll be just fine. And there's the other one I did previously. So the ailerons are ready to try. Now, a little piece is supposed to go in there, and I wasn't going to put it in, but it actually might help. Now I was trying to test fit these, and so you can see my problem. If I match up the roundel, which it matches up beautifully, then the aileron is, of course, too wide. If I try to slide it underneath the paper, oh yeah, you can see here, I'm trying to show you visually a little bit easier. You can see there's a very large piece there. And then there's a huge gap underneath. Looks really poor. So, what to do? I toyed with putting it underneath the overlap, but if I do that, you can see that the roundels are never going to match up. And so I decided really the only thing I can do is sadly cut down the aileron. So I marked where they're going to go, and hoped it wouldn't take off too much of the corner, that little tip of that roundel. And I went ahead, bit the bullet, and cut these. And I ended up having to do it on both ailerons, by the way. But it looks okay in the end. But when you do this now, because you're making it thinner, cord-wise, you're also cutting through that extra folded piece that was used as a place for glue. So you got to go back and put some glue in there. You basically cut off where the glue is. And there I'm getting the edge just cut slightly, because it has to be a rounded edge on the aileron. So you're sort of making up the part as you go. And again, the cord now is thinner than it's supposed to be. I'm hoping that when it's models all together, you'd have to look really closely to notice that. At least that's my plan. We'll see what it looks like when it's all done. This one might be a 2-footer. But I just re-cemented that end to get it on there. Do some touch up, because now it's thicker on the edge. You can see that. So I did some touch up with my marker, and that worked out okay. I might go back with some paint and do a little bit more. We'll see. But there's the new, improved thin aileron. Now this looks terrible. I'm putting on lots of glue, but it's because there's really no place to have this wedge piece fit in there. And all I'm trying to do is have it glue in and kind of provide a little bit of purchase. It's not structural. It's not doing anything important at this point. We're flying by the seat of our little pants here, trying to make this come back together. So this is, not at all the way the model is supposed to be. So I'm not sure exactly what I did. Anyway, just making sure this goes in, and it actually is going to be angled a little bit, which it shouldn't be. But again, all I'm trying to do is get it in there so that I have a place to put my aileron. So there it is, and actually put the aileron on, and I've canted it down because that fits with what I have in the cockpit. Now, underside, you can see what I did was take a little piece of stuff and paint it, or put it onto there. So there's the piece left over from another part. And that's the only way I could do that. I think was simple enough, and I think it works. Again, you're not going to look at the underside constantly. So that aileron has to go in and sort of be up because the other aileron is down. So to get this thing on here to start, I got to put a fair amount of glue on here, more than you ordinarily would. But again, what I want to do is get it to get tacky and stick, and then worry about positioning. So, this is thick and stuff, but on purpose. It's almost going to be like a gap filler a little bit. So I add those. Those look really good. They will line up beautifully with the roundel on the top. And then I just play with it until I have it at the right bend at the hinge the way I wanted it, and let it dry. And just want it up a little bit so the other side it matches the other side being down. So that'll be fine. Now, there's a piece I'm going to cut to put on the underside. And you can see that large gap on the, well, you can't see it right now. But there's a large gap on the underside. In this case, it's a little angled. So I'm doing this by eye at this point. But I'm cutting it with a little bit of an angled wedge. And then I'm going to test fit it and just see how it's going to look. And if we put it in there, lo and behold, it's going to look okay. I have to do a little bit more trimming, but you just sort of take it, pop it in there, and you can see that, again, from a few feet away, and you don't hold the airplane upside down, it's going to suffice. So I make a little mark here where it has to be cut off at the edge of the aileron, and then it's a little wide, so I trim the wedge a little bit thinner as well. Because you want to, since somewhere I messed up somehow, or the model did, I'm not sure. These are all these little things that it's a bummer, but I guess it's good to show people that sometimes you got to do stuff like this to make things look good, because you wouldn't want to have that huge gap in there. This does not look professional, but it's better than leaving a big, ugly, open gap. So I cut the edge, round the edge a little bit so it'll fit the wingtip, and then I cut that piece off, and then I add a boatload of glue in there, and put that little filler in. Again, not a lot of finesse, but it works what I'm trying to do. A friend of mine, he's very worried that I use my glue straight from the bottle, and I agree with him. But in this case, I need, enough to fill the Queen Mary in order to at least get a spot in there. That's the beauty of this glue. It will hold and dry and act as almost its own, its own support for something like this. So I just took my filler, my fake little filler here, and just pop it right down, and with a little bit of gentle pressure, it goes in. And it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, because again, the whole thing is not perfect at this point. But what it's going to do is give you visually what looks like a relatively clean underside. And we'll see how the bottom wings go. Maybe I can make the bottom wings actually match and fit. I just don't know what I did wrong. I'm really not sure. But there's the wing. And it's going to be okay. It's just the cord's a little thinner. But again, I don't think you're going to notice that in the end. And then you can see those bottom pieces where the ailerons are. So that's about, my hand says it all. That's about all I can do. Now you can see also here, there's the drooping wing. This is why I don't like the spar set up the way it is. Later on, what I did was I put some glue, some tacky glue, right in that hole, and then smeared it off and cleaned it, and it was fine. And now I've set it overnight, and actually the wing seems actually straight. It's supposed to have no dihedral. But be that as it may, um, you know, here's the quintessential little suggestion as to what it's going to look like. So when you pop it up there where the cabane struts go, yeah, it looks like a Sopwith Camel. So in this case, as long as it looks like a Sopwith Camel when I'm done, I'm okay with that. I want to make it so that it sits next to my triplane or albatross. It looks good.